So something that seems to be occurring across all the states in Australia is a drop in GP bulk billing rates. And so much so that even some doctors have stopped offering it. They've stopped offering the bulk billing, which has forced people to stop seeing their doctor. And the news reports that have come out, it just shows some people who aren't in the healthiest state and they've had to stop seeing their doctor and start kind of taking care of themselves. So the more this continues, what do you think it will actually mean for Australian people? Will it be a bad thing for the overall health of our country, or will it actually be a good thing where people can get more self-sufficient, like what we teach about?
Yeah, so I think it's going to go two ways. I think we're going to end up with a split. And the health system in this country is fucked. It's becoming a third world system faster than you can, I don't know, I open a box of Panadol. And a lot of the doctors now, and one of the biggest problems is that if you're a doctor and your GP bulk bill, right, you bulk bill for Medicare mightn't pay you for 200 days. How can you run a business and not get paid for 200 days? Right, and that is that's a major problem that government also has, is that it treats small people like they don't matter, like they're just scum, and the billing times and payment times and all that sort of stuff. So most of this is that the doctors don't want to not provide the service, is they're not getting paid on time to provide it. Right, so they've got to increase their revenues with the increased costs and everything that are going up, rents, electricity, staff shortages, because people are moving around getting different jobs. I was driving around here the other day, and one of the things I've seen actually I've never seen it before, was a sign at one medical centre that said, "We're not taking new patients," and then a sign at another one that says, "We're taking new patients." I've never seen that advertised anywhere before. And that just goes to show you that these clinics and that, and especially outside of where you got major hospitals, is going to, so you're going to have lesser health ability in places. More people are going to start going to the emergency room, or they're just going to stop, like most people are doing from the reports that you're seeing. They're just going to stop going to the what do you call it? The emergency room, or they're just going to stop going to the doctors, and then we're going to end up with a spiraling out of control situation. It's like anything. You can't stop one thing and start a new thing on a dime. You've got to have an orderly, like for like transition across that spectrum. Now, I think that we will see people looking at alternative healing and alternative medicine practices because of this. I know I've been looking at stuff on my own because it's just a pain in the ass. That it's better to go and have a look at better and better sources of nutrition, sources of health, go back to the basics, and rather than, use petrochemical based pharmaceuticals. But that's not going to help parts of the population that are hooked on it, and parts of the population that have spent years paying huge amounts of tax expecting the system to be there. Right, and it's another government failure and this is why socialism never works, or socialized anything doesn't work, is because eventually they run out of other people's money to support it. So and this is the problem that Australia's got is, if we're going to offer, and I don't begrudge the Australian system, right, but if you're going to put a promise to the market, right, that we're going to offer free medical, and then you start stopping the system of that free medical, right, you're going to have a lot of people who are jealous and biased, and so then you end up with problems again. And then trust in government deteriorates. Now, trust in government has been deteriorating for a long time, and it's coming because of all these bits and pieces. Should the system be totally free? No. Should the system have a co-payment on it? Yes. Or better still, you should pay for your own health insurance, and there should not be any income tax whatsoever, right? There should only be a GST, because that's probably the fairest way of taxing anyone, because it doesn't matter what you earn, everyone pays based on the same percent. But the health system and all that sort of stuff, if you're going to promise a certain outcome for a health system, and that's free medicine or socialized medicine, you have to deliver it. But the problem is, as we all know, our revenue base or our tax base is shrinking faster than it's so the tax base is shrinking as fast, if not as I'll get this out in a minute. It's shrinking faster, if not at the same rate, that costs and overspending is going up, right? So things like the NDIS cannot be funded. Impossible, because of what they've set for the parameters around it. Can't be funded. The PBS medicine can't be funded because of the parameters that they keep doing. They keep promising free, expanded, claiming that's cost of living measures, and that's what all it is vote buying. And so you can't deliver something if you don't have the revenue base to back up your expense side, right? Simple business mathematics. Now, this is going to then, okay, so the general population is going to have lower health outcomes. Some portions of the population, if we 80-20 it, it'll be, 20% of the population will source different and alternate routes to health. And probably most of us on here are all in that category, but 80% won't. They'll either not do it, so we're going to have massive complications with people flooding hospital and all that sort of stuff, because their health is going to go through the floor. We're going to have massive problems with large volumes of people at emergency centres and all that sort of stuff. I can't remember what the fact is. There's these GP super clinics, which are supposed to be the health system's answer to an external emergency centre. I think they promised like 1,000 of them across the country, and 50 of them have been built, right? And that's like over a 10-year period, so they're way behind there. So it's going to be a massive problem. And what it also do is mean doctors will go into private practice. So you'll lose the doctors in rural areas and that sort of stuff. Actually, now I think about it, it may even mean that doctors go back to rural areas, but they become fully paid. They become a private practice doctor. The couple of doctors that we know up in Emerald and that sort of stuff, they are full fee paying. They don't bulk bill and haven't since they opened their practices, and they're doing quite well. So that could be the model that ends up happening. But then again, it's those that have got the means and those that don't have the means. You get that sort of divide again in a free, open, capitalistic society. That's probably how it should be. And the problem is people like ourselves, we look at it and go, well, I don't use the system. I'm paying high taxes. I'm finding my own alternatives. So I'm just going to get more disgruntled with the whole system and look to bow out of the system, which means that you end up with standards of care moving out of the public system into the private system, and people then, even to the point where people leave the country. Have a look at the US. The doctors, dentists, physiotherapists, they're all leaving the US and moving to Mexico and other places in Central and South America and the Caribbean, because they can run the practices they want to, and people are willing to fly down. Their insurance costs are less, their property costs are less, their staffing costs are less, their access to medicines are less, their access to natural therapies aren't restricted. Things like stem cell treatment, homeopathy, all those other things that are restricted because the pharmaceutical companies run places like the US and Australia, people will move to other places. Thailand, for instance, has a fairly open medical system. Other countries in the region are starting to do the same thing because they're going, holy shit, we can actually make money out of what is seen as medical tourism, but what it is, it's just medical relocation. So people looking and finding where they're going to get treated best and moving to that locale to take advantage of it. So it doesn't have a good outcome at all, and won't have a good outcome for Australia. And it's not the only area that we're seeing. We're seeing it in education. We're seeing it in housing. We're seeing it in infrastructure. We're seeing it in all the basics of the government system that this, they just don't have the money for a burdening system because they're wasting it on woke bullshit and other crap rather than just focusing on the basics. I still don't know why we need 29 ministers. Why do we need 29 ministers in the federal government? For that matter, why do we need 22 of them in the Queensland Parliament? Or whatever it is, 18 or 22. As far as I'm concerned, there's probably only 4 or 5 ministries at the federal level that's actually needed. So there should only be 4 or 5 ministers, maybe a couple of assistant ministers, right? So 10 people. You get rid of 12, and get rid of all those high-paying jobs. But once again, that's how they pat themselves on the back, and that's how the factions work, and they split up stuff and they overcreate. I've always looked at it and gone, well, actually, why does the federal government even have a health department when the actual role of health is a state-based role, right? So that's a state-based role. Education is a state-based role. So why does the federal government actually have ministries and departments of those? It could have agencies for anything that is to do with an international means. And we'd probably be a lot better off. If we didn't have a Department of Health at the federal level during COVID, we probably wouldn't have had any of the crap that happened at all. None. Premiers probably would have started to go that way and then went, oh, fuck, we can't hide under the federal government rules. So we won't do it. And that's been a lot of the problem with Australia, and John Howard fucked this up for us, is he tried to centralise everything, right? Take away stuff from the states rather than leaving it with the states and forcing them to fix it, right? He centralised a lot more. Hawke and Keating started it as well. And that's the problem, is you can't centralise all this stuff and then go, oh, but that's a state issue. Well, hang on, no, you've made it a federal issue because of your power-hungry ways, and now we've got duplication across layers. And arguably, you could say with all the international treaties that were signed up, we've got, maybe 4 or 5 levels of government in this country, not just 3. So that it's just it's the surface. It's like the boil and the blistering of the skin. It's now a visible symptom of the crumbling government.
Can you see that leading to anything more major? Because you mentioned it's not just the health sector they're struggling with, but it's all of the different areas like education and everything else. So what do you think is actually the deeper problem it's leading to?
Oh, it's leading to the destruction of government. So have a look at countries around the world that can't afford to operate their governments. Sri Lanka, for instance. That's where we're headed. we're headed if the governments don't change their ways, which they won't, we are headed towards a third world style, and that's why I think I might have mentioned this before. I think Australia is headed towards what's called the fourth world, right? And the fourth world is a first world nation that's fallen to become a third world nation. So basically, you can't be a third world because you're not developing, you're regressing. So you're a fourth world nation, and that's where we're headed. We're headed where there will be no services. The system will just grind to a halt, and we'll have people just sitting there with heaps of red tape, expecting a paycheck and not happening. And it could even get to the point where the public service just don't get paid because there's just no money.
Yeah,
if we're not careful, that's where we're headed.
Yeah, it's pretty sobering because Australia, I think we've had a good, like what you say, we've been the lucky sperm club for some time, and it's probably catching up on us.
Oh, 100%. And it's catching up so fast and so quick that it seems to be every week now there's a new one of these problems that's bubbling up. And if you add them all together and draw it out, it all heads to the same place. Massive destruction of trust in government, the total destruction of government services, the government's raising taxes and putting more and more restrictions on because they're trying to dig themselves out of a hole. And then that will lead to eventually some sort of either a civil war or a war between nations. So,
yeah, definitely.
Standard playbook. It's happened for millennia. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but I think I said that, this has been happening since man come out of the swamp, from when we turned in to be able to walk upright. The destruction of government started then. So.
Yeah, it's always the things like you don't realize what you have. Like a lot of people take it for granted until it all crumbles. And we got a question here from Christine. So on top of all this, they won't be able to pay pensions either.
Yeah, that's a big one that I keep forgetting. Pensions, social security, all that sort of stuff just won't be able to be paid. And if you have a look at it now, like, what is the pension? $1,200, $1,400 a fortnight. That's not a lot of money. You can see now, and I'm seeing it more and more now that I'm driving around, and especially driving around between cities and that. I think I might have mentioned it last week. The amount of people that are living in their caravans and moving from town to town and staying at truck stops and that it's a lot more noticeable now than what it's ever been. I forget what it is. There was a number coming out for Brisbane just recently, where there was something like 100,000 families in Queensland that are homeless. Not all of them are homeless because they can't afford it, simply that they're homeless because they can't find somewhere to live. Right? There is just not enough properties. People are living in their cars and having to go to shelters and all that sort of stuff for showers and ablutions and that sort of stuff, because there just isn't enough housing, especially in the southeast. So,
and it's crazy to think how much worse they'll get when you add all the immigrants that will be coming in over the next 2 years. It's just, if we're already struggling for people to find houses, and when you add like another 650,000 people, whatever it is, then yeah, logically you can't work that out.
And then that's good. That's going to put pressure on the health system, pressure on the education system, pressure on social services. Most of the immigrants that are coming in are probably coming in under reunification style visas and that for people that are already here. And most of those will be grandparents and parents, so they'll go straight on to social security, right, as soon as they become Australian citizens, once they go through the process. And it seems to be, if you're an immigrant or an illegal immigrant, you can get, so if you're an illegal immigrant or a reunification immigrant or a refugee or whatever it is, it seems to be your pathway to citizenship is way quicker than if you're a contributing high valued member of society, which to me is wrong. It shouldn't be the other way around. Shouldn't it be that those that are contributing to society more should be given the ticket to the lucky sperm club? They should be given the golden ticket before people are going to take out. But the governments don't seem to be thinking that way, especially Labor. They just seem to be thinking, fuck it, these people are probably going to vote for us. So let's just bring them in.
Yeah, and on the pension topic, you were mentioning how much people are getting paid. Christine says she knows people who are actually getting only 400 a week. So there you go.
Oh, Jesus. That wouldn't 400 a week. Yeah, that just, I don't know how you live on that. Not in Australia anyway. I know people that live on 400 a week in Asia. Where your rent's $25 a week, and your groceries are $50 a week, and that sort of stuff. And that's what's going to happen as well. There's who was it? There was someone I ran into the other day. Like, I've been talking about, there's these resorts overseas now that people are building for Westerners to come and live in Indonesia and Thailand and Malaysia and Philippines and all this sort of stuff, and have all the services that you want. They're all over 50s or over 60s resorts. I actually ran into a guy. Where was that? That him and his brother, that's what they do. They live here in Australia, and they run like a real estate business for these type of communities, and they build these type of communities. They're building one, I thought he said they're building it in Lombok, which is next to Bali, for those that don't know. And so Lombok is Bali 30 years ago. It's fantastic. I think they said they're building it there, because we're talking about the modular home, tiny home stuff, and how they're building, because they're basically bringing in kits from Australia, and then building it so everything's to like an Australian standard, and looks like something that you would get here in Australia. Who was that? It's going to bust.
What's the company called?
Yeah, I've got no idea. No idea.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah,